PrymalChaos. Hey guys, PrymalChaos here. Welcome to the channel. This one has been a long time coming. I know I'm a fairly sort of Johnny-come-lately sort of guy when it comes to Ren. I'm always the last one to know anything. That's kind of the beauty of my channel. I'm so far behind the 8-ball on so many things that it makes it great for finding things to react to. But, you know, I'm always the last one to know anything. But this one, I'm a couple of days late on this one, but I really wanted to jump on Money Game Part 3 right off the bat because the first two I was so enamored by just the maturity and the detail and the vision that Ren has to be able to piece these together in a way that's so cogent and so accurate, right? And the thing that's kind of confusing about Ren is he looks like he's 20. And to have that grandiose of vision, of a scope of the nature of the world and how it works is, one, oddly depressing. But it doesn't seem like it's possible to have garnered that much experience, worldly experience at that young age. Now, I know he's not 20, but he looks that way, and that's what kind of makes it a little bit confusing. But even then, he is still a very young man, and to have this kind of level of understanding and the ability to focus his energy on educating rather than spitting vitriol at the circumstances is what really captures my imagination. Because it's easy to be angry. It's easy to be rage against the machine and just call out the inequity in the world and things like that. But the people that you're trying to convince, most people who listen to Rage Against the Machine are already convinced. They don't need convincing. The people you're trying to convince just get kind of agitated by that kind of an attitude. It's like, you're the bad guy. You need to change. It's like, well, you know, I feel like you're just a young upstart who doesn't know what they're talking about. That's the kind of reasoning behind why a lot of times that aggressive attitude doesn't seem to have much weight. But when you take like a attack kind of like what Ren does, where it's like, I'm just going to lay the cards on the table. This is how things are. I'm clearly not super comfortable with it, but take from it what you will and see what you can learn from what I'm putting down. That to me is a far more effective method of teaching and communicating your ideas. And that's fascinating. I'm really interested to see what tack he takes on this one. He's kind of, the first two Money Games have two very different approaches to the messaging. They're two different concepts, very similar, but there's definitely a line down the middle where they're both tackling two different angles. The first one, at the beginning of the song, it sort of defines what money is. And then it sort of highlights how money and greed facilitates classism and ethnic divides. And he does that through that rapid fire delivery about, racism and almost xenophobia and the lack of understanding of other cultures and how that causes division. But a lot of that is racially based, but also a lot of that is a classism. And again, that's all facilitated by wealth, right? By money. The cash behind the different cultures and stuff like that can cause a lot of dramas in world politics, global politics, even down to the average layperson on the street. Number two isn't so much about race. It's more about, it focuses on the wealth divide and how chaos and disorder is like a smokescreen used by the cultural elite, or, by the powers that be, I should say, to distract us from the greed that allows them to rape and pillage the resources of the world in the name of capitalism and, appeasing shareholders and stuff like that. And he uses a thinly veiled analogy of Shell Oil as an example, as being, they're one of the powers that be. But, that could be, you could write Amazon, you could write anything. Anyone pillaging the Amazon rainforest or dumping chemicals in the ocean or whatever. It's almost like realistically what he's doing is he's pointing out that the money supersedes any kind of moral responsibility in a lot of cases. In Money Game 2, there's a lot of chaos in the music video and a lot of talk of politics and things like the cult of personality around the celebrity of being a billionaire or the cachet or the power that you have, being someone like a Donald Trump or whatever. And all that chaos, it is kind of a smokescreen, because while everybody's looking at the chaos and disorder, they're ignoring the corporate level chaos and disorder that's happening over here. That's kind of not being, it's manifesting in a more subtle way, but it's definitely more potent, right? So you know, that to me was super interesting. And I really, Money Game 2, I think, may be my favorite one. But I'm really curious to see where he takes the direction in this one, because I'm assuming he's going to tackle the problem from another perspective, or maybe it'll be a summary of the whole overarching concept of the trilogy, right? But here we go. Let's just check it out. Ren, Money Game Part 3, official music video. That's cute. Oh, wow. We got a dirge. Oh, wow. Wow. Again, beautiful camera work as well. Oh, oh my God. Oh, man. Okay, sorry. I'm going to jump back and watch that again because I don't want to miss the momentum, right? But there's something super theatrical about starting with a piano intro it's bombastic. And, you know, one of my favorite album openings of all time is Absolution by Muse. And I don't know what they're actually playing from memory, but it's something like, I think it's just like a... whatever it is, but it's like, it's dramatic and it's bombastic and it's loud and it's this rattly piano sound, and it's designed to make you uneasy and make you feel like the world's coming to an end. You know, and you know, this is almost like something you'd expect to find in like a classical suite where, you know, things have been nice and beautiful and pleasant and going along, you know, almost like a Disney soundtrack. And then all of a sudden the clouds come and it just becomes dark and turbulent and you feel off kilter. And the camera movement, again, it emulates that, by the way. It twists and turns and it takes you off balance and makes you feel off kilter. I mean, we're 46 seconds in and only half of that's been like anything to do with music, and it's already sensational. But let's just jump back. I want to cut through this bit again. Oh, it's so beautiful. It's so delicate there. Oh. Oh, that's so crazy. How disorienting is this video? Well, there's the microphone. I assume this is Ren. That was clever.
Tell you a story about a boy named Jimmy. 1 year old and his first words were mine, mine, gimme. 2 years old he was walking, 3 years old walking quickly. 4 years old he was running round the pavements of his city. 5 years old and his daddy told him, listen here son, you gotta learn to be a man. A man, he works for what he wants. 6 years old and he's reading, writing, top of the bunch. And when he's 7, his progression made him student number 1. 8 years old and he's praised for unusual grades. 9, his parents paid for private school to nurture the flame. 10, 11, 12, 13, he ascends and ascends. His daddy tells him, son, money is the means to all ends. 14, solving complex mathematical equations. At 15, IQ 150, still elevating. 16, he develops complex software code that detects weaknesses in cybersecurity protocols. 17, and he sells his vision, keeping the share. Not yet an adult, but he's practically a millionaire. 18, and his daddy tells him, now you're a man. This world don't give a damn about you, so take all that you can. 19, he turns a profit, stocks and shares, invest in product. 20, double down deposits. 21, his income rockets. 22, he learns the truth is just an obstacle to wealth. If you manipulate the data, then a lie will sell itself. 23, a life of luxury, crystal and cocaine. 24, he makes the Forbes list, they're applauding his name. 25, and his daddy tells him, listen here son, while you're sitting in that palace, that don't mean that you won. 26, a business shift, he switches business to arms. He's 27, dealing nuclear and shells in Iran. 28, inside the Senate, money bought him a seat. He's 29, a role of counsel in the president's suite. Now he's 30, his daddy says you're losing the race. You're just a servant to the king, not even in second place. 31, a big maneuver for his daddy's approval, moving imports over borders from the exports out of Cuba. 32, moving grams, growing kilos to tons. He's 33, filling warehouses with powder and guns. 34, turf war with nobody to stop it. Blind eye from the popo inside of his pocket. 35, he gets the call. I'm sorry son, but it's your father. Had a heart attack, I'm sorry, he's gone. 36, getting pissed off, abusing his product. 37, eyes glazed, disposition demonic. 38, with a prostitute, a moment of passion, heating up a silver spoon and then chasing the dragon. 39, getting reckless and hungry for power. Daddy's words are still driving him to kill and devour. Makes a move against the cartel, but the strategy's flawed. They retaliate and leave him in a hospital ward. A bullet buried in his vertebra and one in his leg. The doctor sighs and says, I don't think you'll be walking again. Fuck. Let me tell you a story about a boy named Jimmy. He was 40 and he cursed the words, mine, mine, gimme. 41, he wasn't walking. 42, not walking quickly. 43, never running round the pavements of his city. 44, inside a palace with a mountain of gold. But those riches turn to rubble when perspective evolves. Weighing heavy on his conscience is the value of gold. Lamborghini for a life, trading money for souls. Jimmy followed the code inside the land of the free. Put your hand inside the cookie jar, take more than you need. And his example is exaggerated versions of me. And it's a version of him, and it's a version of she, and it's a version of you. There's no escaping the blame. The way we live is parasitic. Fuck the money and fame. Cut the music. This isn't entertainment. This is real life. The way we live is lunacy. Community, it declines. Hyperpolarized, always fighting, then we divide. Truth is less important than the money that we designed. Money's an invention. Politics from our invention. They all come from people's ideas. Did I mention? Border's an invention. Law and order fuel the tension. It leads to people killing each other. My solution? Everything is subject to change. We could build utopias if individuals were taught to use their brains. But if we teach kids in schools to always be sheep and put themselves before the herd if there's more money for me, then there's no future I see where the humans survive with parasites inside a petri dish with cannibal minds. Mold will grow upon the surface and consumes till it dies. And our fate could be the same without this story to the wise. "45. Jimmy comes home out of the rain, soaking wet upon a wheelchair, drinking again. He is everything he wants, he is fortune and fame. He's a fortunate fool with an unfortunate fate. With a 45 caliber aimed at his brain. 45 a fitting number cause his age is the same. Here's the words of his father, it's such a damn shame. Then he presses on the trigger of a money game.
How does he keep doing this to me? Oh my God. Oh my God. I need to gather my thoughts on that one. Okay, so I guess what I was implying before this started was I was wondering how he was going to take the concepts that he was alluding to in the first two money games and then wrangle that into something maybe as a summary or whatever. But the idea of taking it and writing it as a parable of like a single person's experience that covers all of the elements essentially of like of what he was getting at in the first two. Like they were much more overarching concepts, you know, like capitalism, greed, you know, racism, all of those elements. It's pretty easy to sort of say, oh, he could just find another angle and just do more of the same. But Ren is such a genius that he knows that the best way to bring it home is to connect it to something tangible. And that's the story of somebody that, you know, in many ways everybody can relate to, because there's a lot of elements to Jimmy that are relatable. You know, he starts right from the time he's born, you know, and he learns to walk, and just the same as everyone else. He starts on the same strata as everybody else, the same level. And then, you know, obviously this is a generational thing too, because his father is obviously disillusioned and disappointed with the world because he has such a callous heart as far as, you know, you're not successful unless, you know, the world doesn't owe you anything, but you're not successful unless you take all that you can get. And so you end up in this situation where he's driven by the haunting words of his father about, you know, I need to be successful. Otherwise, what am I even doing here? Right. And so he applies himself and he moves in the right directions, and he does things for the good of the people. He finds flaws in cybersecurity issues, you know, and then sells that concept to corporate greed to gain for himself. So it's not altruistic at that point, but that might've been the catalyst for the change. Like he worked really hard, got good grades, solved puzzles, worked things out, became somebody who could connect the dots. And then I guess his first real bite of success was selling his software to a company that, you know, would use it, and he makes money from that. And then he can learn to use the stock market. Now we're moving into territory that's kind of like that, you know, it's that whole money is power, 80s greed is good kind of element of society, where it's, again, you know, if anyone's ever seen the stock exchange, it's almost disturbing how detached it is from reality. It's just numbers moving around a board and people addicted to winning and you know, constantly battling the loss, you know. driven by, again, just greed. Like they're there to be successful. They're there to win. And, you know, when he gets to the point where he's done as much as he can and he tries politics and he doesn't quite make it, his father's words are still ringing in his ears about failure. I mean, the next inevitable turn, it's not that big a jump to go from politics to leveraging people's addiction for your own personal gain, right? I mean, you know, you look at in America at the opioid crisis, right? There's not a lot of difference between what's happening there and dealing drugs or, you know, being a drug trafficker, right? So that's kind of an analog for that whole part of the money business as well. But he takes it offshore, you know, with going south of the border and working and building an empire, and then that crumbles. And so with all of the success moving from one step to the next, Jimmy's sort of risen up through the ranks and becoming ever closer and closer to really getting what he was after. That's when everything gets pulled out from under his feet. And he starts 100% regressing. You know, it's the old parable of be careful what you wish for. And, you know, like, I know that this is a completely different thing, but as a creator, I've gone through phases where you do become addicted to the numbers, right? Because you feel like every time you become a little bit more successful, you hit 10,000 subscribers. It's like, oh my God, that's a milestone. And you're like, that feels great. Imagine how good it's going to feel when I hit 20,000 subscribers. But then you hit 20,000 subscribers and you're like, when's 30,000 subscribers coming? When's 50,000? How come other people have 2 million, right? If there's one thing I know about success and in the moderate levels I've attained for myself of any kind of success is that the milestones don't become any more impressive. They just become a little more and more flavorless, right? And so it takes a certain amount of character to be able to leave all that behind and do the thing you're passionate about because you love doing it. Because the million subscriber isn't going to feel any better than the 50,000th one, right? Other than the fact that you can brag about it. That might be the only recompense, you know, right? So, but, you know, and so getting back to Jimmy, you know, he's a victim in many ways because everything he was ever taught about life is that all that matters is winning the game, being the most successful, having the most, taking advantage of other people is winning, right? Whereas, you know, people with the character of Ren understand that taking only what you need and giving more than you have is a far more fulfilling experience. I think that's I don't know Ren personally, but I'd say that's fairly true of his character. And I see that in the way that he's one of those things where he's the rising tide that raises all the ships around him, right? He's always happy to collaborate and happy to, the way he treats creators as well, like reactors as well is interesting. To me, the true artistry of this whole thing is the ability to package it all into a perfect bow of beautiful visual and musical art. It's original. It's not trying to be anything. Ren really defies genre. Like stopping to do a beat poet in the middle of the song is like, you just don't do that. That's not radio friendly. That's not your 3.5 minutes, get to the chorus in 30 seconds, or it's not a hit. It's the message that's the strength of this song. It's the reaction. It's the tears that well up at the end when you see how wretched Jimmy's life has become, and he's a walking, talking parable of what not to do, right? Or a bad example. But it's not. It's a human story, but it's more of like stories in the Bible, right? Depending on how you sort of interpret the Bible. And I'm not religious, but I hear the parables and I'm like, okay, so the reasoning behind this or the moral of this story is whatever it might be. And the story is a way to allow people to relate to that and maybe absorb that message without just pointing the finger and saying, you shouldn't steal. You shouldn't covet thy neighbor's wife. You shouldn't do this. You shouldn't do that. You should help the stranger on the side of the road, right? If you do that, no one listens. But if you tell a story about compelling characters that, you know, may have a terrible end or maybe a hero's journey, you can then create more memorable versions of your messaging. And so that's what Ren has done here. The other two were a little bit more esoteric. Like the videos obviously have strong characterization of the concepts he's talking about. But in this one, he's naming the character. He's building a backstory for this parable. And it could be any one of us. In fact, it is. He mentions in it, we're all complicit. You can't live in society and not be in some way complicit with the corporate greed and the jealousy and the fear-mongering and all of the things that come along with society in 2023, right? I mean, I don't think of it as a song so much as I think of it as a poetic parable. And that's what it is. You know, and I mean, I don't remember him singing anything in it other than, you know, money game at the end to tie it all together, which again was a stroke of genius. Now let's talk about the music video itself. And it's just like he keeps leveling up, him and his team, I should say. It's world class. And I know that the funny thing is, as Ren becomes more and more successful, probably much to his chagrin, right? I don't know that he wants to be world famous celebrity musician, singer songwriter Ren, right? Like anyone else, like I've seen him on TikTok and stuff being kind of chuffed about, like, you know, having a number one release possibly, or beating out the Rolling Stones. But that's the kind of thing he's not so much bragging about. It's more that he's just like, I don't get it just as much as anyone else. This is so strange, right? Look, at the end of the day, he's what I would consider to be a true artist. And I think everybody watching this video would tend to agree. I think Ren's music is way more accessible to a wider demographic, but it's still very eclectic. And yet somehow, I mean, based on the views he gets and even just the people connecting with me on my reactions and the comments that I receive discussing Ren's art, it just goes to show that everybody can connect to this, and everybody who's even just remotely sensitive to the world around them will have a visceral experience. So yeah, but I mean, look, I've waffled on a lot on this one. I could talk for days about this song, but at the end of the day, I look at it as the crown on top of the head of an amazing trilogy of really intense poetic messaging. And that's what we all came for, and that's what we got. So congratulations, Ren, if you do happen to watch this reaction. Yeah, you're a wizard, man. I don't know how you do it. I wish I had 1/1000th of the amount of talent that you have. So anyway, thanks again. If you feel like I've brightened your day at all, feel free to support the channel. Just buy me a coffee. I'll leave a link in the description. As I mentioned in previous reactions recently, there is a little bit of housekeeping. I've been talking about trying to build the profile of this channel. So if you haven't, please click subscribe, hit the bell, because the numbers really help me in my endeavors moving forward with this channel. And I've come into contact with somebody who may actually be able to help facilitate me moving into another dimension on this channel, which will be like long form interviews and podcasts with artists. And so I've got an interview happening next week that is relatively insane. So hopefully if you guys see that, again, the best way you can support my channel, even if you're not super into the artist I'm interviewing, please just click and watch, just even if it's for a minute, just for the algorithm, because this needs to be successful for me to be able to take my channel to the next level and sort of, you know, offer more than just my thoughts on songs. And so, yeah, I would really appreciate, spread the word, help a brother out. If you've ever liked anything I've ever done, this is the most important thing I can ever ask of you, is that if you see any interviews pop up, just click on them and take a look and just see if it's your thing. Thanks again, guys. If you stuck around this long, I appreciate all of you. Stay primal. I'll catch you on the next one.